that there was a socialist movement trying to take over the government. You see, the roots of the ideology that Barack and Hillary are trying to impose on us did not just emerge in the 1960s. They go back over a century. Does the name Eugene Debs strike a chord with you? Eugene Debs was an Indiana labor organizer. Does that sound like a community organizer to anyone listening? Eugene Debs embraced socialism and was the Socialist Party standard bearer for 5 elections. And believe me, he was not a marginal player. In 1912, he got 6% of the vote. And yet his last campaign garnered him nearly 1 million votes when the population was obviously much smaller. You see, Russia's Bolshevik Revolution and the dawn of communism was an exciting experiment that many in this nation saw as quite compelling. Eugene Debs took the message to the streets in the form of strikes and fighting for, quote, workers' rights. Did you know that in 1919 there was one of the biggest race riots in Chicago over the alleged false arrest of a black man instead of a white man for murder? The conduct of the white police force was being criticized during and after the riots. Black Lives Matter. Ring a note to anyone? I'm going to send an appeal out to Mr. Obama. I don't know who he's referencing when he says someone on the radio. I don't think it was me, because it could be me, because I said that he's a demon for a long time, because I believe he's demonic. And I think in deciding how to appeal to Obama, if he gets the reports from one of his minions working inside the inside of the inside, probably he was referring to Alex Jones in that comment. I never mentioned sulfur, I don't think, but I did say he was demonic, because he is demonic. How else would you describe what Obama is doing to this nation other than demonic? There's no other way to describe it. And so I would send an appeal out to Mr. Obama rather than yelling and screaming, because he's the most powerful man on earth, and he's not going to listen anyway. But I think that somewhere inside Barack Obama, there is a different person. Somewhere deep inside of him, there is a man who actually might understand that he has weakened the military, that he has demonized the police, that he has instigated mobs and riots, that he is conducting warmongering against Russia, that he has conducted the greatest spy enterprise ever seen in the world, that he has looked the other way as radical Islamists commit murder and trample the world, while he's destroying our borders, flooding the U.S. with undesirable, deplorable welfare leeches, and continues to practice a scorched earth policy against America. I actually would appeal to Mr. Obama to stop and take a deep breath and understand that everything I have just said can be factually supported. I do not know in my heart of hearts if Obama really wants to do these things or even knows he's doing these things. I don't actually know if he is doing these things on purpose because he has an enmity towards this nation and wants to destroy it or weaken it and turn it into just I don't know what he wants to turn it into. But I do know that he's turning it into something it was never intended to be. And so this is not an apology. This is an appeal to Barack Obama to stop and take a deep breath and stop listening to the mean, evil sorority advisors around you and look at what you've actually done. You have turned this society against each other in a way that it has not been for at least 50 years. You've turned black against white, white against black. You have weakened the military to the point where I don't even know if it can function anymore. You have conducted a war upon the police to such an extent that police are being killed on a regular basis, and you did it. You did it, Mr. Obama. Eric Holder, another one, did it to America. All of the people who have demonized police have done it to America, where cops are afraid to do their job, and when they do, they get killed. It was you who instigated the Black Lives Matter mobs. You instigated the riots. You invited the rioters to the White House. You conducted the spying on ordinary Americans who are not guilty. You are looking the other way as ISIS and other radical Islamists commit murder and rape. You, Mr. Obama, are trampling the U.S. Constitution, even though you are a constitutional scholar. You, Mr. Obama, have erased our borders with Mexico. You, Mr. Obama, are flooding the U.S. with undesirable, deplorable welfare leeches. I can support that by the simple fact that the largest percentage of people on welfare are not Native Americans, and I don't mean American Indians, Mr. Obama, but working tax-paying Americans. But the inordinate amount of welfare that is being sucked out of the taxpayers' blood is being sucked out by your very immigrants. And so it's fair to say that you, Mr. Obama, are practicing a scorched earth policy against the United States of America. So why do you find such offense and some comedy in the statement that some of us would say that you are demonic? This is my appeal. I'm trying to do it in a different way, because this country has one election left, and we know what the media is doing. While the world is burning, the vermin in the media continue to talk about what Trump did in 2005. Many of you have become disheartened because of the piling on by the lowest of the human species, the Wolf Blitzers, the Jake Tappers. I can name them all. It doesn't matter what I say about them. They are paid operatives of the Democrat socialist machine. They are leading you to believe that the election is already over. They want you to believe that Trump can't win. They want to dishearten you so that you don't even vote, because they know that the entire election hinges upon the voter turnout. Democrats understand that. That's why they're working the crowds. That's why they're working the gutters. That's why they're working the prisons. That's why they're working the swamps. That's why the demon in the White House is flooding America with illegal aliens. That's why they've eliminated voter IDs in order to get voter turnout for the most corrupt criminal woman to have ever gotten this close to the White House. And what they want you to feel is that it's over and you can't win, so why vote? Well, the exact opposite is true. Not only must you vote, you must actually get out the vote. You must speak to others on the other side of the aisle, those of you who understand what is at stake, and you must tell them that everything is at stake, because the Democrats are practicing a scorched earth policy on America. And should she win, all hell will break loose in this nation. She will conduct herself in a manner that you can only fear. Now, I can ask you, what do you fear most about a Hillary presidency? I don't think you have to be a genius to understand the answer to that question. Just look at the amendments. Take a look at amendments 1 through 10, and you'll see a few of them are right in her sights. She'll start with the First Amendment. She will limit the freedom of speech. She will limit freedom of the press. She will limit, if not eliminate, freedom of the internet. Now let's look at the Second Amendment. You say, well, wait a minute, that's established law. Do you think that Kagan will still say that the Second Amendment is established in law if Hillary Clinton wins and stocks the Supreme Court the way, let us say, Franklin Delano Roosevelt did? Expanded the court, stocked the court in order to continue his fascistic control over America? I don't think so. So now let's look at the election. And when I told you in the 1920s there was a huge campaign for socialism, and it got very close to taking over America. It was the last time this country faced it the way we're facing it right now with Hillary. See, the election between Hillary and Trump is very clear to me in another way. It's between centralized, powerful, authoritarian, big government. That's her. You just want to put it in a mild way. And let us say a free market capitalist society. And that's the division right there. You want a free market capitalist society with Donald Trump, or do you want to see an authoritarian centralized government that controls every breath you take, taxes you to death, constricts your business, and floods America with so many refugees from so many nations on earth that there's virtually no America left? That's the election in a nutshell. Now, you'd think it would be a slam dunk if people truly understood what is at stake. But because of the fellow travelers in the media, like Wolf Blitzer, like Jake Tapper, I can name all of them, the people are confused. They don't know what's really at stake. And of course, then they're getting the dirt and the mud. That's all they want to hear, is the salacious details. Then you got characters, low life of the lowest. They throw them off radio, have no radio show, no nothing. A guy like Jerry Rivers, you know him as Geraldo Rivera. Can you imagine this nobody who was thrown off radio for being a phony had the nerve to try to inject himself into the Trump issue by saying just last week that him and his brother had secret tapes of Trump that they were going through, and they have stuff that's worse than what you heard, and that creep had the nerve to say a thing like that, and then he apologized the other day saying there's nothing in the tapes? That person is still in the media? That person is still on television? I don't even know where he is. This is what we're facing, that there are no consequences for outright liars, plain out liars. We all lie. We know that in our private lives or publicly occasionally. But when you lie in the media and you are caught, you're usually fired. Why is it that people in the media caught lying now are not fired? Why? because the lowest form of humanity have taken over the networks. The lowest people on earth have risen to the highest positions in the news business. That's why they're not fired. What we are witnessing in this country now is a breakdown approaching a civil war. Several books ago, I wrote a book called Stop the Coming Civil War. I followed it up with Government Zero. I followed it up with Scorched Earth, which, by the way, and I got the news last night, is on the New York Times list for a fourth straight week, despite a blacklisting by Fox News and all of the other media outlets. Now, I expect all the other media outlets, but wouldn't you think that Snow White, who you know as Megyn Kelly, wouldn't you think that Snow White would want to have a best-selling author on her show? You would, wouldn't you? But if you look into Snow White's orientation, political orientation that is, you will find out that Snow White, just like the others, are following the marching orders, and the march is towards socialism. Make no mistake about it. In socialist systems, there are some very rich and powerful people on top, and the rest of the people are serfs. Don't for 1 minute confuse it with an egalitarian equality society where everyone makes the same amount of money. There are the very rich, and then there are the rest of the people. And that is why Snow White, along with those in the media who are all very, very wealthy, continue this absurd march towards socialism. Be right back. Savage. The savage